Hello everyone, welcome in the lecture number 32 of our course Understanding AI through Literature and Popular Culture. I am your host Dr. Shipra Tholia, Assistant Professor, Department of German Studies, Banaras Hindu University. In the last lecture, we have discussed about gender and artificial intelligence. We have discussed the concept that how gender is a constructed category. Gender is not something natural, but gender is something that has been imposed on us for centuries. We have adapted certain roles in our life, and we are much like a theater performers. We are performing those genders, and based on our performance, we have been categorized as male, female, and or third gender. In this context, we have also talked about how AI is embedding biases in itself, and even if we have made certain apps to talk more like females or put forward women rights, they are not really feminist AI, or we cannot really call them feminist AI, or we cannot really put them in the categories that they are going to help the feminist movement at all. In this similar note, we will start with our second lecture. Let's start with a very old book and a very famous one, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. It was published in 1818. You can imagine 1818. So how old this book must have been. And the second photo that you see, it's an adaptation of the book that has, it's a film that is being recently released in 2025, Frankenstein. So my purpose of bringing this book, Frankenstein, today when we are talking about gender is that when we talk about assigning human-like attributes on humanoids or machines, we have always expected them to be of a certain gender. They could be either male or they could be either female. You would not come across any machine that was not male or female, or in any, let's say, science fiction or film, you would not imagine a character that was not either male or female. If you see Ex Machina, we know that Ex Machina is, it's a humanoid. It has no hormones or gender, let's say, reproductive system as such. But then even then we, much like the gender is performed, the creator gives Eva kind of, characteristics that make her a woman. We would call that this is a female humanoid, maybe through voice, through her looks, through her body and the way she behaves, etc., etc. So in this Frankenstein story that was written in 1818, when this Victor Frankenstein, a young scientist, builds a creature, that creature, we can compare it more like maybe today's artificial intelligence, or maybe some kind of monster machine he has created. And because he looked very ugly, so society didn't really, accepted that creature. So this creature was very sad, and he asked Frankenstein that I would demand a companion. Please make a companion like me. And first, Frankenstein thought of making a female companion for him, more like we have a male creature, and then he would make a female creature. He starts making that creature, and immediately Frankenstein notices that this creature that Frankenstein has created, he looked happy. He has a very cunning smile on his face. And then immediately Frankenstein think that if he makes another creature, let's say a female creature, they would be procreate, they will have kids, and it's possible that in the coming time they would destroy the whole society. And for that he does not really make a female companion for this creature in this book, Frankenstein. So this story is of course very well known to everyone. But the one point that you must have noticed was the concept of gender. How from the very beginning, even for machines, we have always imagined a gender. Frankenstein made a male gender, a male machine, and he thought for a companion he would need a female companion only. And when they are together, male and female together, it is possible that they will procreate and they might have a future generation of themselves. And this is what stopped Victor Frankenstein from making another female creature. But if you see the concept of gender, that is male, female, and how we assign these human-like attributes to machines has always been there. Even in let's say in 1818, this very concept was there, that if there is a machine that is powerful, it would be of male gender. And if there is a machine that is powerful, it would be like of a female gender, and female gender would be a machine that would be able to, produce children. And this very concept of, having this domestic kind of environment with a male and a female creature, or let's say machine, has always been there. And these our concept of constructing gender by assigning them the gender roles has always been a thing of fascination for humans. If you see more films, like you can see in this photo, I hope you can recognize, this is from Blade Runner 2049, whereas K is a replicant and he interacts with Joy for the first time. And you can see it's a very domestic setting. K is in his house. And the viewers can initially see it from the outside as seen through the window frames, metaphorically representing a cinematic screen, a fantasy environment where this replicant is talking to Joy. More like, it looks like a family where husband and wife are inside the house. Thereafter, it is as if the film invites the viewer inside to experience the fictional setting in which K and Joy are set. K is seen starting a device, following which Joy's voice is heard. Of course, the film never tries to hide the fact that Joy is a hologram. But the way they are presenting it, it looks as if the machines have, these replicants have a very domestic kind of setting where they are, doing their gender roles, so to say. K is, let's say, a husband who has been working the whole day and he comes back to home, and wife is inside the house, maybe cooking for him or waiting for him. A typical gender roles, and those roles have been assigned to artificial, let's say, these robots or replicants. If you, as I said, that film doesn't really try to hide the fact that Joy is just an hologram, it's another AI, it's not really a human. K does everything himself, including stitching his wounds, washing himself, and preparing his foods. In order to make himself feel like he's sharing his life with someone in a make-believe domestic setting, he prepares two drinks as he speaks with Joy. He makes one for himself, another for Joy, although he knows that Joy is just an hologram. She's not going to drink it. Here you can see the household work he's doing. When he is ready, when he cooks, he sits in the center of a room facing the window directly. Bright flashes at the window resembles the flash of a cinematic screen followed by a hologram projected by a projector. And here you will see Joy appears all of a sudden. Joy is all dressed up as a housewife. You can even see she's wearing an apron as if she has been cooking and cleaning for her husband, or must have been waiting for her husband to come. She's all dressed up as a housewife to attend to his husband. She has, food on her hand. She's ready to serve and ask about his his day. When Kate tells him that he had a very rough day, she changes her avatar into a chic avatar, all jolly and cheerful to divert his attention. In the first photo, you would see a homely Joy, a homely wife who has been working very hard whole day, maybe cooking and cleaning. And now when she has cooked, of course she doesn't cook at all. It's this Kay who's doing everything. But it just, the setting is done in a way that we always, end up assigning, typical women roles like cooking, cleaning, the woman wearing an apron, and woman who's just, always ready to please, her husband. Immediately she changes, her avatar or her, herself into, a very chic, stylish woman wearing black dress, and as if she, she's not a boring, so to say, avatar or a boring hologram, but someone who's ready to attend the needs of the user. So consider the following thought experiment. Given the choice between an anatomically correct sex doll and a black box that is capable of interacting and reciprocating emotionally, which would people choose to take with them to a desert island? This is from Falling in Love with Robots, a phenomenological study of experiencing technological alternatives. When they're talking about how humans are, falling in love or developing some kind of emotional bonding with artificial intelligence or with these chatbots. People would prefer a black box over a sex doll because it would provide a more satisfying substitute for human companionship. In light of Kay's emotional isolation, taking this perspective may be helpful in clarifying his relationship with Joy. As a result, he views the device as a friend with whom he imagines that he is in a relationship. As we said, that he is doing all his work by himself, but it's just his imagination, this hologram, that he thinks that someone is there. And if you remember in our lecture of AI companionship, we have, this discussion where, why in certain countries, especially like in Japan, people are preferring an artificial intelligence over human as a friend, because AI would be available all 24/7 and it's not going to judge you. This is like a common conception. Whereas Deborah says in Virtual Soul, in her talks about virtual soul in her article on Blade Runner. Question from philosophy to myth. The problem, of course, is how to consummate a sexual relationship with a hologram. 2049 solves that problem by means of melding Joy and Marriott, hologram and replicant. Since Marriott is a sex worker by design, the logic of the film might suggest that this solution ought not to trouble us. Indeed, the film depicts this decision as one that is apparently taken jointly by Joy and Marriott. It is unclear why Marriott would agree to participate in the sexual plans of a hologram. That is, the plan of a hologram programmed to fulfill its owner's desire. But considered in the context of representation of gender in 2049, it is possible to argue that what matters here, as we have already seen in Blade Runner, is the gratification of male sexual desire and the compliance of the female characters involved, the typical gender roles. The merging of Joy and Marriott is an example of male sexual fantasy where the desired image, that is Joy, is given by the available sex worker's body, a perfect body, a beautiful woman who's ready to attend the needs of the users. You can see, the transformation that is happening from Joy to Marriott. And here when the transformation is done. So Deborah Knight is absolutely correct in stating that the fusion of a hologram with a sex worker's body caters to male fantasies. As a result of such technology, the film represents men with the possibility of having an idol company with the image of a woman that they desire. Nevertheless, it remains unclear whether Joy's emotions towards Case are simply a function of her programming. In one sense, she is simply following the instructions that have been programmed for her. On the other hand, if observed, do humans not adhere to the routines programmed into them? People are born into symbolic domains, continue to learn their roles throughout their lives, and evolve simultaneously while following cultural scripts. Now, much like how we are evolving as humans. A similar phenomena can be observed in Joy. Despite the fact that the film continues to hint at her true identity, she cares for Kay even when he is not looking at her. So here we have some questions to ponder. Can a machine that cannot consent or embody feminist principles? A machine where your consent is not really required, would you call it a feminist? Does Blade Runner 2049 challenge or reinforce the trope of the submissive female digital companion through the character of Joy? And the third question, does the portrayal of female replicant in Blade Runner reinforce patriarchal fantasies of controllable, hypersexualized artificial woman, or does it critique them? So I would be interested in knowing your personal views about these questions. So thank you so much.